uh, demystifying artificial intelligence and looking how that affects our classrooms. It's going to be a very interesting discussion, I think, and I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us tonight. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all meeting. For myself, that is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I also concede that acknowledge, that these lands were never ceded. To kick off, I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker for this evening, Dr Scott Sleap, and he's a distinguished leader in STEM education, bringing over 25 years of experience as a technology and computing educator, and has made notable contributions across various sectors, including education, government, and business. His expertise extends to advanced technological domains such as cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and deep tech. Dr. Sleap's commitment and innovative approaches have earned him significant recognition, including the prestigious Prime Minister's Prize for Excellence in Secondary Teaching and the honour of being a 2023 Winston Churchill Fellow. The STEM programs he has developed have made a positive impact on over 100,000 students and 20,000 teachers. Further demonstrating his influence, Dr. Sleap serves as an advisor to the New South Wales Government and the Australian Space Agency, where he is considered one of Australia's leading space experts. As the managing director of Sleap Business Consultants, his specialties include STEM education, workforce development, and project management. With his in-depth knowledge and experience, Dr. Sleap is exceptionally positioned to elucidate artificial intelligence, providing insight into its implications and opportunities for Australian schools. So that's a very quick rundown of your life, Scott, but we'd like to welcome you and thank you tonight for joining us to discuss artificial intelligence in our schools.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction too. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. And in particularly this topic, it's a fascinating topic. It's in the media a lot. And it is one of those topics that is going to be one that you're going to hear a lot more about in the future. And it's one of those topics too that does bring a bit of controversy. And I know that there's some anxiety amongst our parents and teachers and others in society about AI. But I'm here to tell you tonight that I believe that the overwhelming good that will come out of AI is what we should be concentrating on rather than the potential negatives that will come about. So without any further ado, I will share my screen and I will start the presentation. So hopefully, Sharon, are you seeing my screen there?
Yes, we are. Yep. Thank
Perfect.
you.
And again, the idea of demystifying artificial intelligence, and this one is specifically looking at the education implications. And I'm just having a little bit of trouble with getting the right screen in the right place. Just bear with me for a second, and we'll have it in place. Apologies for that. And there we go. That's not the right one, but anyway, I'll keep going. So first of all, just like to give a brief introduction about AI and its role. As I mentioned, it's going to be a really important part of what we're looking at in the future. And I do believe that artificial intelligence is really poised to revolutionize education. It has this massive capacity to do things very, very quickly. It enables the automation of tasks. Also, in an education sense, it can really personalize learning and predict the success of students. So in that, what we're looking at is using systems and computing and technology so that student can actually make the best decisions and the teacher can make the best decisions in regards to education. Again, AI has this vast transformative potential, not only for education, but society. And we're going to delve a little bit into that tonight. However, I suppose, which I've already alluded to, AI brings a whole range of different challenges. And in the education sense, we're looking at the ideas of data privacy, ethics, and for me, being from a regional area in particular, equitable access amongst a whole litany of other contentious issues that has to be carefully managed. So in this presentation, we'll explore the exciting opportunities that AI will present, particularly enhancing the teaching and learning, and hopefully I'll give you some examples. During the presentation, if there are questions, please put your hand up and the moderators will point me to that, but there will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end. So in terms of defining AI, and particularly its evolution, I've just got a little YouTube video that can do that probably a little bit more interestingly than what I can. So I'll just skip over to that video now, and we will run that, and that'll give a nice little definition.
It's a weekend, and John decided to watch the latest movie recommended by Netflix at his friend's place. Before heading out, he asked Siri about the weather and realized it would rain. So he decided to take his Tesla for the long journey and switch to autopilot on the highway. After coming home from the eventful day, he started wondering how technology has made his life easy. He did some research on the internet and found out that Netflix, Siri, and Tesla are all using
Just
AI.
saw it. It's back up.
So what is AI? AI, or artificial intelligence, is nothing but making computers-based machines think and act like humans. Artificial intelligence is not a new term. John McCarthy, a computer scientist, coined the term artificial intelligence back in 1956, but it took time to evolve as it demanded heavy computing power. Artificial intelligence is not confined to just movie recommendations and virtual assistants. Broadly classifying, there are three types of AI. Artificial narrow intelligence, also called weak AI, is the stage where machines can perform a specific task. Netflix, Siri, chatbots, facial recommendation systems are all examples of artificial narrow intelligence. Next up, we have artificial general intelligence, referred to as an intelligent agent's capacity to comprehend or pick up any intellectual skill that a human can. We are halfway into successfully implementing this phase. IBM's Watson supercomputer and GPT-3 fall under this category. And lastly, artificial superintelligence. It is the stage where machines surpass human intelligence. You might have seen this in movies and imagined how the world would be if machines occupied it. Fascinated by this, John did more research and found out that machine learning, deep learning, and natural language processing are all connected with artificial intelligence. Machine learning, a subset of AI, is the process of automating and enhancing how computers learn from their experiences without human help. Machine learning can be used in email spam detection, medical diagnosis, etc. Deep learning can be considered a subset of machine learning. It is a field that is based on learning and improving on its own by examining computer algorithms. While machine learning uses simpler concepts, deep learning works with artificial neural networks, which are designed to imitate the human brain. This technology can be applied in face recognition, speech recognition, and many more applications. Natural language processing, popularly known as NLP, can be defined as the ability of machines to learn human language and translate it. Chatbots fall under this category. Artificial intelligence is advancing in every crucial field like healthcare, education, robotics, banking, e-commerce, and the list goes on. Like in healthcare, AI is used to identify diseases, helping healthcare service providers and their patients make better treatment and lifestyle decisions. Coming to the education sector, AI is helping teachers automate grading, organizing, and facilitating parent-guardian conversations. In robotics, AI-powered robots employ real-time updates to detect obstructions in their path and instantaneously design their routes. Artificial intelligence provides advanced data analytics that is transforming banking by reducing fraud and enhancing compliance. With this growing demand for AI, more and more industries are looking for AI engineers who can help them develop intelligent systems.
And I'll stop that one there. So that gives you a really nice overview in less than 5 minutes about what artificial intelligence are and the different sort of aspects of it. It mentioned in there, obviously, the education side, but I'd just like to also give you a little bit of information about where AI systems are being used in space. As when I was introduced, I've just come back from a Winston Churchill Fellowship over to the US, where I was studying space and STEM, and I was very fortunate to be able to go into NASA's Goddard Flight Center. I was able to go into a range of NASA sites, actually, but also Lockheed Martin. And there are a couple of things in there that I thought were fascinating in the use of artificial intelligence. So currently, the Goddard Space Flight Center is working on the next telescope, actually the next two telescopes that are going to go up into space. So you know about the Webb telescope, perhaps. So the next generation is actually much larger. So I don't know if you saw the original, where it was like an origami and the actual thing opened up. So they sent the whole thing. Well, what they realised is that's not going to be possible for the next generation and the sizes. So what they're working on at the moment is delivering parts up into space and getting artificial intelligence systems to actually build the telescope in space. So they will learn. It won't be just a step by step. They'll actually be reacting to different components and building it. And there's also talk about doing that for colonies on Mars. So sending the robots with a whole heap of materials and getting them to look at the materials and actually build on Mars with the materials that are on site plus the materials that are delivered. So there's some amazing things happening in the robotics area. And whilst at Lockheed, I also was in their intelligent robotics systems center, where they were actually had rovers that could detect the pathway based off the cameras. So they don't know where they're exactly going until they land on a particular area, and it maps it out and looks at the different options. At the moment, the current Perseverance robot has to wait for someone to give it an instruction. So the longest distance it's been able to travel in one go is about 100 meters. So this will mean that these robots, or these will be able to continually move and be more efficient. So just an example, a little bit out of education, I know, but it's just one of those sort of areas where, again, we're seeing artificial intelligence and what its capabilities are going to be. And on that point, I'd really like to discuss the idea of the great potential or amazing potential that IA has. This is where I think we need to be concentrating. I'm going to talk about the negative sides in a moment, but I really do believe, and I use artificial intelligence myself in my daily job, and I'll talk about that later. But I see it as actually enhancing my own abilities. So not using it on its own, but taking what I already know and being able to improve on that as an educator. And of course, that also goes to all other professions. So it has the potential to amplify our own intellectual abilities and paving ways to improve and advance in any field, not just education. One of the other areas that I'm fascinated in IA too is the ability of having companions. And the way I sort of look at this is the Iron Man movies, and you see Jarvis that talks to Robert Downey Jr. And having that conversation with an artificial intelligence. So as that improves and increases, I really do think that AI will have a vast role for companionship for people who do not have people around them. Definitely the whole use of artificial intelligence to broaden the scope of achievement in all professional fields to aid decision making for leaders. And a good example of this is in the medical field, where they're using artificial intelligence to improve diagnostics of things like skin cancers, for instance. So being able to use the doctor's capabilities, but then enhancing that by looking at hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cancers and being able to get them to be more accurate. Also, I do believe that if we don't advance ourselves in artificial intelligence in terms of the technologies and what we're using in our society, in education, in business, in all areas, there will be a negative economic impact because other countries will do that. And I'll allude to a little bit more about that in the future, in the presentation. And again, I mentioned about these great scientific and creative leaps that artificial intelligence will actually potentially bring. And the one that's a little bit I thought about, and which is something that's sort of counterintuitive, but the idea of being able to use AI to humanize and make a more compassionate world, which is something that's sometimes missed. It does have the opportunities to be able to do that by expressing things more creatively, being able to manage adversity, to demonstrate empathy in ways that we can't do it at the moment. But a lot of work needs to go into that to make artificial intelligence more human. Obviously, as there's massive challenges of climate change, war, and a whole range of diseases and things that seem to be coming our way, AI is going to be one of those things that's going to help us meet those challenges in the future. So I believe anything that people can do with the natural intelligence today can be done better with AI and can lead us to a better future and a better way in which we can live. So that's the positive spin so far. So we need to look at the other side. So dispelling the AI misconceptions, and there is a lot in the media at the moment about doomsday scenarios in relation to artificial intelligence, that AI may even cause human eradication. So these are kind of a little bit the Hollywood versus reality situation. So movies like Terminator have really got into people's psyche and thinking that AI is going to take over. It's very, very unlikely. AI is heavily regulated. Given the current technology and capabilities and ethical guidelines we've got, it's very unlikely that's going to occur. You can't say it could never happen. You can't say that for anything, but the likelihood is very, very minute. Whereas in the real world, IA is about problem solving, improving decision making. It's not about world domination, as we might sometimes see in our media. So again, artificial intelligence is designed to augment human capabilities, not necessarily replace them. It excels at particular tasks, but some tasks it's not very good at. Obviously, those things that only humans can do, they will remain very, very important. AI does have the potential to displace workforce, but the upside is that the jobs that it potentially create should more than cater for that issue. The other, we need to talk and understand the limitations of artificial intelligence and understand them, that basically what we put into artificial intelligence systems is what comes out. So if there's bias that's built into it, then that will give a biased result. So we need to be aware of that and understand that in these whole doomsday sort of scenarios, you're assuming that this machine or the limit or what AI can do is become conscious, have free will and ability to do things that we've told it not to do. And at this stage, that's not what AI is capable of doing, and certainly would be controlled. Everything that goes into the algorithms that make an artificial intelligence system are what we've created. So we set the rules, we set the boundaries of what it can do, and it's main purpose is to ensure it serves our needs and what we want to improve. So hopefully that gives you both sides of the arguments in regards to what are the negatives and the positives and how they interact, and looking at some of those misconceptions. But I'm just now moving on, unless there's any questions from the team. No, I'll move on to the main purpose of the talk tonight, which is the adoption of artificial intelligence in education. So there's a lot happening in education globally, but I'll stop now. Yes.
I just got just people want to know if you can share that video link at some stage, so we'll grab that off you before it finishes, and I'll send it out.
Absolutely, it's one of the better ones I've seen, but I'll definitely do that. I'll put it in the notes before I go. So no more, I'll move on. So as I mentioned, there has even in the last 6 months been a bit of an explosion in terms of the use of artificial intelligence in education, and I'll allude to it in Australia, where we've been caught a little bit flat-footed in terms of keeping up with that. But in terms of its adoption, some of the key areas that we'll look at and the key advantages of it, particularly in the area of personalised learning, where as a teacher, I'm in a class anywhere between 20 and 30 plus students. So as teachers, we try to what we call differentiate our learning. So provide the learning that meets the needs of our individual students. But do the math, your 1 hour lesson, you've got 30 students, you've got 2 minutes per student. So to personalize that learning in a lesson and what you're doing is quite tricky. AI systems have the potential to tailor that education and the individual learning styles for those students so that they get the best possible education that they can get by having these systems set up for them. So that's an important aspect. The intelligent tutoring systems that are coming out are amazing, and you're seeing those being done globally. So they're based on the answers that the students give. So when they're being tutored and they get a question correct, they understand, the system understands that the student knows that and moves to the next level. If a student gets an answer wrong, it then will go back and then try to give more materials to try to assist them to learn that. So that intelligent tutoring systems have a vast opportunities to actually be able to improve the way that students learn and more efficiently. So often as a teacher, again, 30 students in the classroom, you're going through a bit of work. Does every student in the class understand that? AI systems can actually assess if they have and then redirect the work to them. In terms of a teacher, this is the one thing that I really love, is that administrative efficiency side, like being able to get rid of or streamline some of those administrative tasks, and free up educators or teachers to do what they do best, is teach in the classroom. The predictive analytics is another interesting part, which is again identifying problems or identifying issues and finding those students who may be falling behind and making the teacher aware of that so that they can make the difference. There's different aspects of immersive technologies that can be used, so AI and virtual reality and artificial augmented reality, that allows students to go beyond the classroom whilst in the classroom. So learn about things around the world by using these systems and developing them. AI literacy around the world is exploding, and countries like China, the US and UK in particular have already got AI literacy in their national curriculums, and they see that as being important for their future. So this going into Australia, I'd have to say that we're a little bit behind in terms of where we should be, particularly in the policy area, and also in the oversight of such tools. So you've heard of ChatGPT. a lot of work is going into that, and policymakers, and I know in a national sense that we're trying to come up with national policies around AI tools and how they're used, and what's the best way to have policies in place for them. But some other issues to be aware of is that the AI opportunities are immense of what they can do, but in Australia, there's unequal opportunities to get that. So if you're in an area that doesn't have good internet, or you don't have access to the technology, you'll be further held back by not having access to AI technologies. There's obviously the ethical and safety concerns in the use of things like ChatGPT, particularly the idea of students cheating in exams is one of those areas that come up, and I'll talk more about that later. And I mentioned about that digital divide between different areas, or haves and have-nots in terms of the technology, and unequal. Coming from that is that unequal adoption of the technologies across the nation and across school systems in particular. So that's a part of that digital divide aspect. There is a need for action in terms of having good standards and policies that ensure safe, ethical, and effective use of AI in schools. And hopefully they will be common sense and not reactionary with the idea of ban, because you cannot, you cannot ban this. You can't prevent students for what they do at home. And banning doesn't work. And the fact is we should be utilising it as an effective tool. But for me, despite all the challenges, I do believe that there is a massive potential in education for AI to enhance what we do as teachers. So again, like improving teacher efficiency, I've mentioned about those automating administrative tasks before, the predictive analytics, but that targeted instruction I think is really important for us. So being able to target those students who need the most help and provide them with that, and artificial intelligence will allow us to do that. I do believe it'll reduce teachers' workload. If they pick it up, it's already reducing mine. And we talk about, which I'm going to demonstrate a little bit later, AI-aided lesson planning. So using tools like ChatGPT to assist them in doing that. And I'll show a practical example of that in a moment. So where's it being used? Some examples, some practical examples. So teachers are using ChatGPT to create new work, such as images, using what we call text prompts. They're using it to create examples and processes for solving different problems, making quizzes, math units, supplemental materials, developing meal plans, health wellbeing units, and art images. So what I'd like to do now is actually go into ChatGPT and actually demonstrate where we might, or where this could be used in education. So I'm going to use this example and I'm going to show you the results. So this is the ChatGPT environment. There's different versions. ChatGPT 3.5 is a free version. It's quite quick. ChatGPT 4 is a far more advanced version. And it takes a little bit longer, but I just want to show you an example. So I've got here telling ChatGPT that I'm a teacher in New South Wales and I'm currently teaching Year 9 history. So produce a set of lesson notes on the causes of World War I. So I press it, it'll go through, and you can see how fast it is actually producing a result. So it'll go quite detailed, but I'll jump into where one I prepared earlier. So this was where I put it in before, and you can see that it's determined because it knows it's New South Wales curriculum. It's 1 hour long. It puts lesson notes in here. It's got materials. It gives the teacher opportunities to use these prompts of how to set out their lesson. Talks about how they could assess it, homework that they can give, and it gives a reference. So as a history teacher, if I was just to use that blindly, it'd probably be okay. But ChatGPT sometimes gets factual things wrong. So to the point of where I say about augmenting the abilities of the teacher, I find these types of things very, very useful in that it's a good starting point. Oh, geez, I hadn't thought about adding imperialism to what I was thinking of delivering. So you can actually augment what you're doing and add your own components to it and find a compelling and easy lesson to develop. Because it's done in such a way as putting in dot points here, it can easily also be adapted, some of these things, to go into a PowerPoint display. So you can quickly turn notes like this into that. And by the way ChatGPT works is it goes through the internet and finds hundreds of thousands of examples and brings it together to be what are the best examples in its algorithm to do that. And sometimes it gets that wrong, and a lot of times it gets it right. But in regards to like some of the points in here, you can then also go in and ask ChatGPT to provide more information on each of these. Another example, which I think you'll all like, this is a non-education example, and but I really like this in terms of trying to save time. So it's dear old mum's birthday coming up, and I've got to write a birthday card. So I'm just putting in ChatGPT a heartfelt birthday message for my mother's 70th birthday. So pop it in there, and it comes up and writes a beautiful heartfelt message. And some people might find that as being a little bit disingenuous, but you can use these tools to rapidly be able to write in a way that you may not have been able to in the past. So here's an example there. Like if you're looking at that, that's quite long. So it's not really suitable for a birthday card. So you can then just go ask them. So please, it's always nice to be polite. Make more concise.
So they've just asked if you could zoom it in because they can't read the text.
So,
Please.
I see if I can. Yeah. So, is that easier?
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
You've been a guiding star.
Yeah, sometimes, and you can ask it to be a little less emotive and things like that, but like make more concise. Again, you can then get it to redirect. You can say how many words you want it to be. And here's the one where they get a bit concerned about cheating. So you can actually put in here, a student can put in there and write an essay. So what we have to do in the fact that this is a possibility now and knowing it's a possibility, we need to be looking at the way we assess things. So we shouldn't be giving, and I remember this back when Google became prevalent as well. You had to stop asking students to do assignments that you can just Google. So it's a little bit like this. You now have to be looking at assessment that you can't simply just put in ChatGPT. Also, if you've used ChatGPT, you can get a sense of how it actually answers things and how it does, so you can pick that up. Also, there are tools out there that teachers can use, so the students need to know this, that you can put the stuff through and it tells them what the probability is that that's been generated by artificial intelligence, or if it has been copyrighted, if you've just copied it from And so more and more schools are actually getting access to those tools as well. So one that I'd like to also show you is artwork. So Midjourney is a I did have one put in there. It's missing. So Midjourney is an artificial intelligence system for creating beautiful artwork. So I'm just going to put one in there. So imagine /imagine is what we put to let it know we want to imagine an item. So I'm going to say a prompt. So a photorealistic image of a teacher. So something very simple. And it'll go and do its bits and pieces. It's sometimes a little bit slow depending on how often it's being used. But here we go. It starts creating this. So this one, I've spent a lot of time on this. I just find it amazing and really motivating to use, and I think students would as well. So I use it for my business. I use it for my work, where I'm making images that I would have had to have paid quite a bit of money to actually produce. So that one's coming up a little bit, coming up there. We might come back to that, but I'll show you a couple that I've done earlier today. So these were ones where I put in looking at a futuristic cityscape using artificial intelligence. So that's another one where I put the topic of artificial intelligence in. But and again, here's that image. You can see it's an amazing clarity. These people don't exist. They've been all computer generated. I'll just show you some of the images that you're actually seeing in the presentation. In fact, all of the images you're seeing in my presentation have been generated using Midjourney. So these are graphics that have all been produced using artificial intelligence. And I'll also let you know that the vast majority of the presentation used parts of ChatGPT to develop as well. So artificial intelligence was used in the production of this, and of course I augmented that with my obviously own knowledge of the topic as well. So again, that's what I see as being the best example of what we can do with artificial intelligence.
Sorry, a question that Wendy had was
Yep.
with the ChatGPT, would it reference the information?
It did in that particular case. A lot of the times it doesn't. And I know in new versions they're going to do that. So again, as a teacher, if you sit there and put that prompt in, say, provide references for that, the majority of the ChatGPT stuff at the moment doesn't do that. So there is a way to make sure students aren't using it to do assignments. But can I also say, look, so an example of what they're using in some of the universities now, and this is what I'm aware of. So in an English teaching class, what they're getting the students to do is actually create a piece of creative writing using ChatGPT. So they learn about the prompts that are best to do that to get the best outcome from ChatGPT. Then they have to write their own version, and then they use the assessment guide to assess ChatGPT and the quality of the AI-generated materials compared to the real material. These are the type of changes we're going to need to make in education to allow for the fact that we now live in a world that has these very sophisticated language models that are very powerful in terms of what they can do. So I mentioned about the modification of existing work. This is what I really love again, and I'm going to go back to ChatGPT for this one. And I'm going to just bring up an email first of all. So I don't know if you can see that, but this is a typical email that I might receive during. So, invitation to deliver a presentation on artificial intelligence at our school. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write a polite. Oops, that didn't copy. Write a very polite response to that email. So I'll write a response, and then I'm going to copy the email in, and ChatGPT is now going to go in and write a response for me. And I do use this quite a bit. I always modify it, but I tend to get it gives a better quality result in terms of what I'm asking it to do. The other thing that I would do in terms of an email like this is I would type the email directly in as a prompt, and then I'll say in the front of it, reword. So that whole idea of creating, modifying existing work is probably where I use GPT the most. I will write different components, I'll put it in there, and I'll ask it to reword it. It will check grammar, it checks spelling, it fixes things like tense and all those sort of things that you can often get wrong, and it does it very rapidly. So again, in terms of how that's being used for teachers in classrooms, that is definitely a way in which we can be more efficient in terms of what we're doing in the classroom. Okay, so next one, student use. So where are they using it? They are definitely using it to do their homework. I've got a son who's doing the HSC this year, and I said to him, so in your year, how many students would be using ChatGPT to assist with their homework? And he basically said 100%. So it is happening, and as teachers, we need to be aware of it. But also, it's an amazing opportunity, like studying, getting study notes, doing exercises. Like students can put in here and even ask it questions like, how do I study? And ChatGPT can sometimes give a better result than something like Google in terms of those sort of questions. What is a step-by-step way in which I can solve a particular problem? And ChatGPT will give you that in a very concise manner. The other area where I know it has been used is in the co-creation of content. So again, what I said before about that blending, so writing yourself directly into ChatGPT and then getting AI to augment it. So as what I alluded to earlier, and I do find that as being good for teachers, but students are actually doing that as well. So they're looking and putting their own work in, and then forming out other AI generated components out of it. And I think as long as students are identifying they're doing that and showing both sides of it, I don't see that being a problem. It's when they're particularly just using artificial intelligence to come up with answers to homework and then saying it's their own work is where the ethical issues definitely come in. So some of the areas that we need to be aware of in AI and its potential misuse. I mentioned about the cheating side of it, and I've dealt with that. But other things that we need to be aware of is things like bias. So, as I mentioned earlier, what goes into ChatGPT is basically looking at what's already on the internet or other sources that have been developed for that or put into the engine. So, if it already has biases in it, it's just going to mirror them. So an example of this is using artificial intelligence to actually in hiring teams. So this whole idea of decision-making bias. So they've worked out that a lot of the AI algorithms they use have a particular bias towards men. So if you're going to use these, they're going to spit out decisions and give you information that is going to be highly biased towards one gender and not another. And they're working towards sort of trying to do this. Another thing to be aware of too, which is outside of this, is that ChatGPT sometimes, if it doesn't know the answer, it makes stuff up. So that leads to that whole idea of misinterpretation as well. So you can misinterpret what it's saying, but it can also put examples up. And a classic one just recently was a lawyer who was preparing a brief for one of their partners, and ChatGPT made up a whole heap of case law that didn't exist. So they went into court and actually presented this case law, and ChatGPT just did that. So here's where, again, the limitations of AI. You need to have enough knowledge of your own work to know when ChatGPT or these AI systems give incorrect information. Again, very important. So ways to mitigate risk is to ensure that that the information that's going in is not biased. Regularly testing the systems, looking at improving the algorithms so that in the system so that that it's not biased. Making sure that there's good ethical guidelines and regulations in the use of these things, and a high level of transparency and what I call explainability, if that's actually a word, in making AI decisions and using AI to do that, and making sure that we correct any biases that are out there. And most importantly, awareness and education. So educators know the limitations of and the potential biases that this brings in. So what are the roles for schools in this particular area of ethics? So I think it's important that we are teaching our students about the use of AI and ethics, about cheating, about the safe use of AI, providing guidelines for the use. So schools need to establish those guidelines to make sure that they use those ethical standards. Like just telling the students that we do have systems to check if you're using AI, or implementing programs that do that would be quite useful to stop the misuse of it. And promoting digital literacy, so encouraging a good understanding of AI, its benefits, its risks, the ethical implications thereof. So the role for parents. So for me, the most important role for a parent is actually going to be monitoring the AI use at home. So if they're using it, so making sure that you know what they're doing, guiding them into the best use. Promoting awareness. So I think parents need to be educated and aware of the potential risks and also the benefits of AI, and fostering that environment and having informed discussions with your children, and encouraging that responsible use. So also using it yourself and demonstrating and showing how you're using that ethically. Again, I think there's a big role for parents to supporting AI, artificial literacy at home. So again, things like maintaining open communication, staying informed yourself, collaborating with your schools, trying to promote the use and understanding of artificial intelligence with your kids. Be aware more than 50% of the Australian population is using artificial intelligence systems at the moment, such as ChatGPT and the tools that I've showed you today. But now I've been speaking for much longer than what I should have. I'm going to open up for some questions, and I'll stop sharing.
There's one in the chat at the moment, or two actually. To be an influencer to ChatGPT, do we need to be on the internet, and does ChatGPT have access to the dark web?
No, ChatGPT doesn't have access to the dark web, and in fact, it doesn't have access to the internet currently. So the information that's been uploaded into its algorithm is basically a whole heap of data set that goes back to about 2022. So all the materials that have come in since are not part of the current model. So what happens is it takes all the information and then it creates an algorithm to actually use that. So it's actually not going live to the internet. So, and it will say if you're trying to get information which is straight up out of what you find in Google, ChatGPT won't have that. It doesn't have the most up-to-date information. But what you can do, and how, if there's information that you want it to know, is you preload it. So when you go into ChatGPT, if there's information you want it to know, you put that up and say, remember this, and it remembers it. And then you ask a question and it updates that information. So you can definitely be using that to make it more accurate and to be doing what you want it to do. But my understanding is no, it's not directly connecting to the dark web, but you are at the mercy of the people who are uploading the information. So the Open AI group that I'm going to stop sharing. Open AI group that develop it. Again, we're relying on their how ethical they are in regards to what they're putting in there, and they are an open source group. So that's why I like to use ChatGPT, and there are others.
Yeah.
More questions?
Just a bit of a cheeky question. Did you use AI to write the slides?
Yes, I said that earlier.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a
and
way?
I was going to leave that. I was going to leave that to the end, but the thing is that, again, I use throughout my presentation, I use things that obviously wasn't in out of ChatGPT, my own knowledge as well. So I used ChatGPT, but then I augmented that, or it augmented what I did to do it. But the base thing what I started with was that it was made heavily, but I still used it because it saved me. It probably saved me 5 hours worth of work by doing it that way. It was still probably 5 hours worth of work to prepare it on top of that, but there's a 50% reduction in workload by using it.
Okay. Is there a way to check for plagiarism through ChatGPT?
Not through ChatGPT, but there's programs like Turnitin, and there's other ones that are out that you can put it through and it will identify the probability that was generated by AI. The kids are starting to get smart though, because they create ChatGPT, then they go put it into another engine, which then changes it again, and then you can change it again, and it makes it harder and harder to actually to police. So if you're going to Turnitin has false positives, absolutely. I've been a lecturer and I got a false positive for a student and had to put them through an ethics program because that did that. So I'm well aware of that. That student didn't give me a very positive review at the end of my time, I've got to say. So it does do that. There are others that definitely there are engines out there that check it. But my thing is we need to rewrite our assessment tasks so that it doesn't allow for an easy thing to be developed on ChatGPT.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the great presentation, Scott. Can you explain how schools can access some of the intelligent tutoring systems?
A lot of those are commercial. So most things that you'll find online will have those. Again, because a lot of the artificial intelligence stuff is at a charge. Like ChatGPT, you can use for free. There are I think there are others that are out there that are free. But remember, anything that is free, you're the product. So the reason that it's free is it's learning from you and it's getting information from you. So anything that's free is not really free. So those really sophisticated learning systems you're talking about, and you can look at them online, and I haven't been right through them, but you'd have to have a look at the rating systems on them of how other people have like feel how good they are, but the potential of them is quite high. But nearly any company that's using those things is using some form of artificial intelligence to augment them at the moment.
Will GPT-4 be free in the future?
Well, 3.5 is. So I pay for it because one of the things is because it's free, sometimes so many people are using it, you get put in a queue. So by paying for it, you get access to GPT 3.5, and then you also get 4, and you get preferential time on the service. Possibly 4 will become free when 5 becomes the new standard, and then so forth.
Yeah. Can you tell us how to use it, to use immersive learning? Who is using it, and how can we get the information?
Immersive learning, most of the stuff in immersive learning is when you're talking about virtual reality and augmented reality. So, and a good example of this, Google had these Google Glass programs where a lot of schools use them, where you could basically put virtual reality on, and you'd go on tours of the Taj Mahal, or you'd go into Egypt and have a tour of the Great Pyramids and things like that. There's examples of that, like going back to sort of my space stuff. There's immersive programs that you can get where you put the glasses on and you are imagining that you're on the space station, and you can actually do work as if you were an astronaut, doing parts of spacewalks and different tasks. When I was at Lockheed Martin, they were using augmented reality to improve the quality of the satellite builds. So basically, you put these glasses on, and it said, "All right, take part A and put it into part B." It'd say, "Pick up a screwdriver," and it'd say, "All right, tighten it up to a certain level." So there's a lot of those happening in training, in particular, and I'm seeing it in schools where the training people of how to like build things. So it goes step by step, and that's particularly important if you're working in a dangerous environment, or where you couldn't take students. So if you wanted to take me onto a mine site or something like that, that wouldn't be practicable. But if you go and use these, you can actually train them or educate them in different aspects of different roles using these immersive technologies. And it's the graphics are getting so good that you really feel that you're there. And I must admit, when I was doing it, the feeling of seasickness, I was inside Australia's, which is going to be Australia's next communication satellite, and I'm actually physically inside it and climbing around and being able to see what's in there. So those immersive technologies are amazing, and a lot of schools are using them now more and more.
Yeah, someone's just asked if the recording will be available. We actually put it into our webinar section on our website, so I'll send everybody a link to that when we've got it up and ready to go. Someone's made a comment that Bing's chat GPT 4.0 with the current internet access, not just up to 2021, also does references.
Yeah, I noticed that it did references today, and it's the first time I've seen it do references. I think it's an update. They do not leave it live. That they are. I've been using 4 for a while, and it still comes up and says that the database is from a certain time. So I'd have to double check that. It may be correct, but I know they are looking at having the live component to it. So where you can also do things such as like download a YouTube clip and get it to actually summarize the YouTube clip for you and things like that, which would be quite useful for a teacher as well. But I've just noticed some of those features aren't available yet, but they will be available in the future. So I'm thinking 5 may be the one that's doing that, not 4. But look, some people might know a little bit more than what I do in that sense. I'm just looking at what I've seen in recent weeks.
Yeah, and some people have commented that there needs to be some professional learning for teachers in using the AI tools and even having them available to them. Is Australian government looking at policies to help that?
Yeah, Australian government is definitely looking at that. Each state and territory have, but I know there's a big push nationally for all education ministers, and there's a working group at the moment so that there's a national standard rather than just individual states coming up with their own. And I know that New South Wales Department of Education is working on that. And I did say we're sort of a little bit behind this, but there is a lot of work. There is current policies out there that have been put in place to schools. In New South Wales, it stops short of saying ban, but in essence, if you look at the rules for using some of these tools, it does say that you should be 18. So whilst that's the case, the education department's policy is, well, if its user agreement says they should be 18, then students shouldn't be using it. So be aware that that's so getting students to actually use it in a classroom setting at the moment is probably something that we're not looking at until that changes. But be aware that the students are using it, so they're using it at home to do these things. So we know that, so we need to be able to take into account for it. Teachers are encouraged to use it. We're over 18. So we're allowed to, and
I don't look at it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're sort of seeing it more in education. But we have the awareness that students are using it. University students are obviously using it quite a bit too.
Okay, we might make this the last question and then get any other answers back to people because it's getting late. Do you see an opportunity for students to co-create AI content, and is this being considered in the future curriculum for across the nation?
Again, it's been considered, but there's still work to be done. So one thing I didn't mention, so things that you can get ChatGPT to do is create code. So students are like using, you have it here. So microcomputer technologies like this are quite prevalent in schools, but you can actually get ChatGPT to write the code to make these things work to solve particular problems. So that has a massive potential. You can get them to write code for computer programs, to create websites. So there's a massive amount of things that it can actually create. But there's also like learning how to create artificial intelligence systems themselves. So there's open systems there where students can actually create artificial intelligence based products as well. So in the coding, and that is where really big opportunities are for the future. We don't have enough people who have got the skill sets in Australia in these digital systems to be able to develop artificial intelligence systems. So with quantum computing, we're chronically short of people in cybersecurity. So all those areas can be developed quite extensively via the use of artificial intelligence.
Wendy's put in the chat a link to some resources that Queensland Curriculum Authority has produced for people. If you want to have a look in the chat, otherwise I can add that to the sending you out the link for the webinar recording. There's no further questions in the chat. I just checked the Q&A to make sure people were using two spaces. No, there isn't any more in there either. So yeah, that's cool, and lots of thank yous.
Perfect. We got all the questions out. That's good.
Yeah, awesome. Over to you,
I
Sharon.
hope it was useful. But thanks. Just like to say thank you to for inviting me to be part of this. It's a fascinating area. I thoroughly enjoyed preparing it and delivering it for you all.
Thanks, Scott. I think it was really, really interesting. Lots that I have to learn, lots that we all have to learn probably. I can see absolute huge benefits in a whole lot of areas of life for us, so that's really great. Totally agree with you that banning does nothing. So we need to get our education departments realising that and working around some ethical, as you said, ways to use it. And it's just, yeah, it's going to be really fascinating. My one question would be, if all the students in one class have the same assignment and they all use an AI product, are they all going to produce the same handiness, pretty close to the same result?
One of the things that's really they sometimes similar, but ChatGPT will produce a unique response. So if you put the prompt in the same time, you won't get the exact same response every time, which is hence. So if they all do it, there'll be some similarities, and the teacher will smell a rat because they'll be all written in a similar way. Because ChatGPT tends to write in a similar way. This is only through observation, by the way. It's not anything that. I'm to the point now that I've used it enough that I think I could spot someone who's just used it raw for an essay type or the type of work that I do. But again, there's ways to mask that, and if you add, the more you add your own input into it, the harder it is to do.
Right. Yeah. No. Fascinating. It would make it much easier for a teacher to mark an assignment if everyone's got the same one.
Well, ChatGPT could potentially use to mark assignments. Definitely make marking guidelines for them that are easier and more efficient. So there's I think the big winner is actually teachers in some respects, but they have to also have the same problem of monitoring plagiarism and cheating and things in the same sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's going to be a fantastic tool. But the other thing I'm just a bit worried about is the inequity, as you spoke about at the start. Not everybody having access, not only to the programs, but to internet, to computers, to devices. We've already got that in school, so that's just maybe another hurdle for our not so advantaged communities. But
that's not and look, COVID really showed that up. Lack of internet access, particularly for our rural and regional families. There was a massive digital divide that's out there. So there needs to be a lot done to that, because we're also those young people who do not have that access are being shut out of future professions and future opportunities that others have. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much once again. It was really fascinating. I think it sounds like everybody's got a lot out of it, judging by our questions. So thank you, Scott, for giving your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And as Di said, she'll send out the link and you can have the recording from our website. Thanks, everybody.